Well, hello, everybody. We have a super special episode planned out today here with my buddy, Steve Owens, Bassmaster Tournament Director.
And part-time podcaster now, evidently.
And part-time podcaster, which, by the way, I got a little bit distracted when you run that Newport ad.
Yeah.
I got to say, I feel pretty good about the way I look in that ad.
Yeah.
I kind of killed it.
Yeah.
What do you think?
It makes me question some of my decisions, so I have to.
Anyways.
I got you.
We're here. We're on the Kissimmee chain, and we are excited to get the first event of the season rolling. But before we get the first event of the season rolling, we are even more excited to announce our first official guest on the Scope podcast. It is actually going to be the former Hobie BOS Open Series tournament director, AJ McWhorter. What's up, man? How you doing?
What's up, guys? Happy to be here with you all for the first ever Bassmaster podcast, The Scope. How cool is it that you guys are doing this?
Man, I'll tell you what, we're super excited. And more than anything, we're super excited to have you as our first guest. So, when we were talking and we were trying to figure out what we were going to do for our first episode, considering this is kind of the official Bassmaster Kayak podcast, I thought, what a better way to kind of kick it off than to kind of talk a little bit about the state of what we do, the state of kayak tournament bass fishing. And in order to do that, I felt we already have, the tournament director from the Bassmaster Kayak series. Why not bring in, the former Hobie BOS Open Series tournament director? I mean, the Hobie BOS Open Series was literally, in my opinion, the tournament series that put kayak bass or national kayak bass tournament fishing truly on the map. I mean, that's not to discard, so many amazing trails that we've had in the past, with KBF, Bass Open Series, River Bassin. I mean, so many incredible trails that all have played a part. But I mean, when I think about, the sport of what you might want to call or might not want to call professional kayak bass tournament fishing, I mean, to me, and at least from my perspective, the Hobie BOS Open Series really kicked it off. And so we're honored to have you as a guest. I'm already blessed to have Steve-O here, to do this with. Let's get the show on the road.
Yeah. To your point, with the B.O.S., we had existing things that were, helping grow kayaking. But what AJ, granted, you can put a label on anything, but, he had a good support system that he built from the Hobie company. But he made it to where, by goodness, you wanted to go fish. It's like my boss, thank goodness, he used to let me work 4 10s so that I could have days off to go practice. He would let me work whatever I needed to go. I missed so many days chasing that B.O.S. series for 3 years. I know in 1 year I missed literally 37 days to go fish. Now, he let me take them off, but this is not vacation days because, it was our series. AJ put it out there and let us have it. And it was, it's what we mimic today in everything that we all do, because he's obviously a close friend. But when something works, just ride it. And to have him be able to do that, and as you know, us all being behind the scenes stuff, seeing everything he put into it, it changed kayaking. I don't know how you put it, but it just changed it. And so we appreciate you, AJ.
I'm just going to make a real brief side note. I've been doing like a house clean out lately, just trying to, get rid of old stuff. And I opened one of my drawers, and in that drawer, I have every single identifier from every single Hobie BOS Open Series tournament I ever fished. And the only reason I was able to save those was because they were laminated. So just FYI, thanks for laminating those, because I'm pretty sure I'm going to it will be one heck of a big frame. I don't really know how I'm going to do it, but honestly, those mean something to me.
Yes.
And I'm gonna save them. That is one thing when I was going through all the stuff in my house to throw away, that was one thing I was absolutely not gonna throw away. and I don't know exactly like how I'm going to display them yet, but I'm going to come up with something creative.
You can make a mosaic tabletop is what I thought about doing with mine.
That would be pretty cool, but I'm definitely going to do something with those because I don't know how many I have, but it's a ton. I mean, the stack's got to be like that thick, but yeah. Without further ado, AJ, why don't you just first of all give us a little background? I realize we haven't even let you talk yet, so
we're
forgive me
excited.
For that.
We're
just
excited.
But give us a little background. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us a little bit about how you got into kayak fishing and how that became such a big part of your life.
Absolutely, guys. Pleasure to be here. I do have to touch on a couple things that you all said before we dive into that. Number one, thank you for everything that you said about the B.O.S. It obviously was a lot of people that worked hard at that, but the reason it was everything that you guys said it was is because you all as anglers took it that seriously. It mattered to you guys. You all cultivated that excitement with your friends, with your fishing buddies, and your all's attitudes going into those events made it feel the way that you all just described. We obviously built a platform, but it was the anglers that made it elevated, in my opinion. And so your all support, your friend support, all the anglers all over the country that traveled to those events, that borrowed boats, that did all those things. It was those folks that made that series. It just took it up a notch, and we'll always be grateful for all of that support. The second thing about the identifiers is every year when we were looking at budgets and things like that, I fought for those identifiers to stay the same size, to stay laminated. We use a local print shop. One of our original kayak fishermen in this central Kentucky area has a print shop, and we love supporting him. And he made those for us forever. From the very first Hobie BASS Open and Fun Fest, he made Hobie Worlds identifiers. Every Hobie event that used identifiers, he made them. He's helped other clubs. Tim Print here in Central Kentucky, he's made them. He's even had anglers contact him this year trying to reprint old identifiers so they could make some sort of memento that had all of their identifiers in one place. So we knew those were special, and we didn't know how every single person would value them, but we wanted to make sure that even at the very least, an angler could take that home and have a memento from that experience. And when you look back on, okay, maybe they cost like $1.42 a piece or whatever that was, and we had to make two and extras because y'all lose them and things like that, worth every penny. And so really excited to hear you all say that and share that. As far as my history, I'm just an avid angler. That's really how it started for me. My dad taught me how to fish.
Check cash. Check casher.
I got at least one trophy. I had to dust it off and show it off.
I can personally attest for a couple times that you've kicked my butt at least.
Well, those seem like many years ago. But I started wading creeks after my dad and I went out in the John boat. Creek fishing, small water was always my root of my passion for fishing. Sure, I'd go to some lakes and do some stuff, but that wasn't it for me. It wasn't until I got a little older and got a kayak. I actually worked at Sportsman's Warehouse and got a deal on a Perception Pescador, a little 10-footer. It was red, which was my least favorite color, but it went in my red truck real nicely. And that was it for me. I just wanted a way to float downstream. I've been wading miles, catching 16-inch to 18-inch smallmouth in my local creeks, and making annual trips out to New River. And I just wanted a better way to access water. So I got in a sit on top kayak and in a paddle, and found a red milk crate and zip tied some rod holders on there, and elevated my game drastically from a fanny pack and one rod wading up the creek, busting my shins open, but having a ball. And that was really it. And, met a few folks that did it, but it was really just me and a couple close group friends that like to go to the New River once a year. And then river bassing came to town. And, back then, river bassing, shout out Drew Gregory and Jackson Kayak for what they did. River bassing really brought tournaments in their own unique way to communities. You had a Wade division, you had all these things. But I was working. At the time, I was school full time, part-time job, full-time job. I was hustling back in the day, and I couldn't make it. But some guys I knew did, and then the local shop, Canoe Kentucky, decided to run a series the following year, the Elkhorn Creek Fishing Series, and that was the first series of fishing opportunities for folks. And Elkhorn Creek is where I cut my teeth, and had to get in on that. So I took the little pescador out there, and we did some Tuesday nighters. And we there's a picture, if you ever search Facebook, there's Elkhorn Creek Fishing Series, and the header picture is a smallmouth laying long ways with a spoon, like a metal spoon that you would eat your cereal with, because in that event the identifier was a spoon. And we've had in that event, yeah, because we were still inventing the game. It wasn't, we were doing remote access, so everybody was coming to fish the creek from work, and they would literally just say the identifier is a spoon, or whatever it ended up being. So that's literally how it goes. That page has been dormant for many years, but every once in a while I'll poke in and see the worst picture ever taken in a kayak photo release or a catch photo release tournament, and there's my smallmouth. And I won that tournament, and that year I won Angler of the Year on the creek. And there were some amazing anglers in that series, and there were some amazing guys. And we stepped out of that series, and we started a group called the Bluegrass Yak Masters. There was like 7 or 8 of us, and it was amazing how it all came together, because we had a guy that worked at a bank, a guy that worked for in the industry, and a printer and a lawyer, and some guys that had some sponsor connections or that were affiliated. And we all came together and created this local club that lasted over 10 years in Kentucky. And it changed names a few years later from Bluegrass Yak Masters to Bluegrass Kayak Anglers. And that was really the start of it here. And what a lot of people don't know is I was doing untraditional schooling. I was going to school nights and weekends, getting a degree in sports management. I thought I wanted to work in athletics and some sort of business side of that. And my very final project to graduate was literally the business plan for creating the Bluegrass Yak Masters. And we used that plan as the outline to essentially develop and run our series. And I got a great grade on it. And, a year later, I ended up getting an opportunity to become a sales rep for Hobie because of my work in growing kayak fishing in Central Kentucky, and my history in the fishing industry, pretty much working retail for 8 years prior to that. And I give all of that credit to what ended up being a 14-year or just under 14-year career as a independent sales rep with Hobie, an in-house sales rep with Hobie, as well as an independent contractor running events, and then hired in-house as a marketing director of sorts, essentially just in events. But it all started being on Hobie's fishing team, and creating this club, and really developing a community. And that's what the sales reps that hired me wanted me to do, is develop fishing communities. And I worked with a lot of local clubs, a lot of folks all over the country during those years, and helped people in however they needed it, and gave them advice. And sometimes they took it and it wasn't great for their community, and sometimes they did the opposite of what I said, and it was the perfect thing for their community. But back then we were all just feeding off of each other. We were trying to sharpen each other, and sure, there was some competition, but we all looked at other clubs to learn. And that was really kind of the base of all of kayak fishing for us. And it was just an awesome opportunity and some great folks, and really enjoyed that time. And worked with a lot of great retailers at Hobie. And as a lot of you guys know, Hobie's been for sale and been purchased a couple times in the last like 5 years. And last year, White River Marine acquired Hobie, and there was quite a bit of turnover before that, but also more after that. And it wasn't meant to be for me to move forward with Hobie in their new capacity, and pretty much said goodbye to that career in December. And it's bittersweet. Relationships and opportunities have been great. It was an amazing 14-year career. We did a lot of great things, both with sales, servicing, showcasing the product, but also development and growth of tournaments, and setting blueprints for other folks to follow and grow from. And I'll always be proud of what we did there. And I'm really excited about what I get to move forward and do. This is the first official announcement, and there's no better place and group of guys to tell. But I, as of February 1st, have been brought on as the marketing coordinator for Newport Vessels. So excited to work with those guys. They have an incredible team that really gets it, and they have a lot of exciting things that they want me to do. One of the first things that I'll be doing is after the Kissimmee event, I'll be at every single B.A.S.S kayak event in a support role, in a community development role. When I was tournament director, I kind of pulled myself out of the community that I was entrenched in and developed, because I felt like my role needed to be away from that. And there's different opinions on all of that, but that was the way I needed to feel good about that, and the perception of that anglers have about tournament directors. So I really kind of alienated myself from the community that I wanted to be a part of. And in this new role, I get to jump back in and be one of the guys and hang out with the anglers, and support the anglers, and hear from you all, and just really just hang out and get back to community is one of the things that we're going to be working on at Newport. I'm going to be doing some stuff with dealers. I'm going to be representing the brand at ICAST and Bassmaster and other events. I've already got to help them with a photo shoot just recently for something exciting that they have coming out for a release later this month. And I also am working on what I'm going to call is like a brand event, and we'll just leave it at that for right now. But you guys know, couldn't stay out of it for too long. And I'm really excited to kind of peel back the layers of this role, and kind of get my hands dirty again, and get out there and be amongst the community that so many of us have worked hard to cultivate over the years.
So the bottom line is, you just can't get away from us.
Mm-hmm.
I can't. I even took another job that I still am going to do. So I was joking with some guys, and I told them I'm just going to go sell pergolas and screens on commission, because I saw this job listing. But actually, I have started selling when I'm home in Kentucky. I go do in-home sales, and I'm selling very high-end outdoor enrichment products that allows people to spend more time in the outdoors. So, selling one premium outdoor product to another, I'm looking forward to that. But the marketing opportunity here with Newport, and the brand, and what they believe in, and what they are working on to give anglers in small vessels, more opportunities is something that I really can get behind, and I'm really excited about everything that's coming.
And, I can really attest to that as an angler. And honestly, a lot of people will not think about this, but as a hunter, I mean, I have been using Newport motors
Yeah.
like crazy to get me places quickly and quietly. But on another note, AJ, one thing, we kind of heard your background, but one thing that we didn't hear you talk too much about, and that at least I know from my perspective, I'd like to hear more about, is kind of your transition into becoming a tournament director and your transition into more specifically uh, kind of bringing about the Hobie Bass Open Series and what became the Hobie Bass Open Series and what became, in my opinion, the elite level kind of tournament organization. Tell us a little bit about kind of what was it that brought you to kind of bringing that to us, and what was it that brought the Hobie organization as a whole to bringing that to us, because it truly was special and it truly was one of the series that really really caused kayak bass tournament fishing to evolve into what it is today.
Yeah, I mean, tournament directing is not for everybody, and some people learn that after they try it. It's it just
It's
takes
usually down to the last person that'll actually do it sometimes, isn't it?
sometimes, but also sometimes it's the first person that stands up and says,
Yeah.
"I think we can do this better," and that's really how it came about for me. And I mentioned how the Bluegrass Yak Master started, and I've never one time taken full credit for that, because it was not just me. And anybody that um, has ever done anything with tournaments, um, it can be incredibly challenging to do it on your own, and not too many people can. But the folks that surround themselves with a good team and have some support, they're the ones that can kind of last a little longer. And it was all about the team, and it really made a big difference for me. But it all started for me looking at that Elkhorn Creek fishing series and saying, "Boys, we can do this better." And instead of complaining to the tournament director or the shop, like a lot of anglers would want to do and try to just give them ideas, we created our own series. And, we went back to that shop, and that shop was a sponsor of ours forever, because we believed in the grassroots aspect that they brought to our community. And we wanted to feed that back to them. But when it came down to Hobie a few years later, I had just started with Hobie. I was at my first what they call outdoor retailer. It's not the same as it used to be for the paddle sports industry, but that used to be where everybody released new products and wrote orders. But it was my very first time being there with Hobie. I met the whole Hobie team, and it was kind of just this blank canvas. I was the new guy. I got hazed in all sorts of fun ways. But
Any
it
Louisville
was
stickers slapped anywhere?
what's that?
You get any Louisville stickers slapped anywhere? Anywhere?
No, not none of that. But the opportunity was really good, and we just started a guy that some folks might remember named Morgan Prominence, and another guy that was kind of in charge of marketing directly to the fishing industry. What was named Keaton Oath. And Keaton and Morgan and one of my original bosses, his name was Steve Oxenford. We all just kind of sat down one afternoon after a big day at OR and just started spitballing ideas. And I let them know things that I thought the industry could take, and what we could do. And it turned into the Hobie Bass Open and Fun Fest. And, the Fun Fest evolved a little bit over the years, but we did a dealer demo a couple days, a couple years there on Kentucky Lake. We had some live music come out and play for us a couple years. We had seminars. We had all sorts of other stuff that went on in conjunction with this tournament. The tournament, the very first year, we were submitting SIM cards, and looking at fish like that. We evolved with iAngler for a little while, and then eventually moved on to Tourney X. But it was a community event. It wasn't this big high-end fishing tournament. It was really, I think we even did 3 fish limits. It was really a community gathering within a fishing tournament. And there was this worlds qualifier that was attached to that event that elevated the seriousness of it for a lot of folks. And every year the pay scale got bigger, that worlds qualifier got more desirable, and it really just turned into a really special event. We fed the anglers multiple times. It was about making the people that came feel good that they came. And I think that's one of the things in tournaments that's hard, is because a handful of people win prizes, 10 to 20% of the people go home with cash. That means 75% of the people that come to an event only leave with their experience. And their experience, a lot of it's controlled by themselves. They have to mentally have the positivity and the growth, and looking at wins within losses and things like that. That's part of growing as an angler, part of growing as a person. But what can the organization do to help create a better experience? Little things like we just mentioned, the food and the music and a laminated identifier card. Little things like that maybe doesn't seem like a big deal in the moment, but 15 years later, what do you have? That's what you got. And so that was really important for us in that event, to create an environment that people had fun at. And we had all the reps come. We had Hobie representatives come out as well from Oceanside, and they just connected with anglers. We had a lot of our fishing team that used to come to that event. And back then, fishing team wasn't just who's good at fishing tournaments. It was who helps the brand. And a lot of people think that people that catch more fish than other people help the brand, but there's always been a lot of people that work behind the scenes at dealerships, moving product between dealerships, just being involved in a larger way than just fishing tournaments. And those people got to come and be recognized and be seen. And it was just a special thing for everybody. We brought in Hobie Outdoor Adventures to film it. So we were able to take those events and push them out on TV and YouTube, and they're still there. I mean, you can go search Hobie Bass Open and Fun Fest and find 25-minute episodes. And it was just a really cool experience. And Kentucky Lake was an amazing host. It was kind of centrally located. If anything in this country is centrally located, Kentucky Lake was a place that people could really come to from all over the country, and they did.
With big fish at the time.
Well, there's always, more big fish were more common back then. We also did it in the summer when the lake was full and there was generation, and people could see the value in having a pedal system. So there was a really soft sell opportunity on why our brand excelled in those scenarios. But that's not what it was about. Everybody was welcome. We wanted everybody in every kayak brand to be there. And if you came away from that event thinking that a Hobie was cool, then we did our job. And that was really what it was about and why we did it. Now, after a few years of that, we took a step back and we were like, we can grow this thing. We can have a series. And we wanted to see what that looked like. And so there was other events that had people that ran them that supported Hobie, that helped us kind of get the ball rolling in that. We took the Border City Classic up on Lake St. Clair, and we kind of made that an event in our first year. We took the TOC, the original TOC that was on Lake Fork every year. We kind of made our TOC a continuation of that in a lot of ways. We continued with our event, and then we added a few other events in there in the first year. And in addition to that, we had satellite events. We wanted to see if single day events working with local clubs helped our series. And the attendance wasn't great at that. But the people that came and qualified and then got to come to the first TOC, they took that back home, and those were seeds planted that created a really big boom for the next year, even though we got rid of the single day events. Part of running events in any capacity is figuring out what works. The Bassmaster Kayak series had single day events originally, and then went to 2-day events. We tried single day smaller events, but that didn't work for us. We wanted to kind of put on a show and give credit, excuse me. I'm out of practice talking so much.
You're doing fine, man. You're doing fine.
So, we went to the premium 2-day events, and the rest is history.
So going off of that, at least for me, the Hobie BOS Open series really kind of lit a fire in me. For the first time, I felt like I had a true trail, a true national trail to really chase. And the most important thing kind of that made that series so special to me is, at least for me as an angler, I knew in that series, no matter where we were in the country, I was competing against the best.
Yeah.
And prior to that, aside from, there were certainly opportunities to compete against the best, but we didn't have, at least from my perspective, we didn't have a true trail where I was truly all over the country competing against the best anglers, not just in that area, but nationally. And so I gotta say, at least for me, thank you for putting that together. Thank you to Hobie. Thank you to you, AJ. And we will use that to kind of segue into our, the primary topic of this particular episode, which is, where are we in kayak fishing right now? Are we growing? Are we a little bit stunted? There's so much that's going on in our sport. I have no doubt right now, at least from my perspective, that the sport in general is growing right now. But sometimes, at least, with our national trails, it doesn't really seem to reflect. Now, from my perspective, one of the things that I see happening a lot is a lot of these local trails are growing in a big way. And, with, the economy, however you want to look at it, a lot of people are wanting to hold on to their money and perhaps not wanting to spend that money to travel, with there being so many incredible options just so close to home. But, from your perspective, and from the perspective perhaps the Hobie BOS Open series, what is there any trend that you're noticing? I mean, I know it seemed to be kind of up and down as throughout the life of the series. Is there anything in particular that you can pinpoint or that you've noticed that has caused kind of a shift in our culture, and as a or from the perspective of a national tournament fishing organization?
Yeah, there's a lot there.
There's a lot to unpack here.
The BOS grew exponentially every single year. And we had a cap in our events because we wanted to make sure, one, that we could manage it. And from a kind of a skeleton crew that was doing these events as kind of an additional role, we wanted to make sure that the people that did come to the events had a premium experience. And that started with us not biting off more than we could chew. So that's kind of where the cap came in. I know the cap was frustrating for some people at times, but it also kind of created a baseline of what our events were going to be. The final 2 years of the series started to dip a little bit on our average in the second to last year. And then the final year, kind of the bottom fell out for us. And in my opinion, that was more of a result of the support of the company and the efforts that they put in to supporting the series and marketing it and promoting it, and creating an experience at the events that we've talked about earlier that made people go home feeling like they had a good time, whether they won or lost. And I'm not blaming the company for that. We probably shouldn't have even had a series the last year that we did, where the company was, and a big reason why we didn't the next year was, I kind of stood up and was like, we can't even take care of normal business properly with our company right now. We shouldn't be trying to do this also. It wasn't a popular opinion, but it was heard, and that's kind of why the BOS went away. That's what happens when you have a manufacturer running a series. It doesn't. It kind of revolves around the manufacturer's business as opposed to the series of being about the anglers, which is why it was started originally. But we ran its course, and I think that the timing for Bassmaster to do what they were doing was very important, because as we were starting to go down, they were there to kind of catch the anglers that needed a little bit more, both from marketing, from publicity, from all the things that Bassmaster was able to do for the kayak angler and continues to do. So, there is that. But I think the thing is that kayak fishing represents so much. It's not just a high-end tournament fisherman. It's not who can catch the 5 biggest bass. I run into kayak fishermen that are just out to go crappie fish, or they don't take it seriously at all. And that's the beauty about the sport is because it's so attainable for the average person, it brings in a wider range of demographic. I think we're evolving. I don't think we're necessarily growing or shrinking. I think we're just finding new ways and new avenues, and we've got some other styles of events that are doing good at cultivating community or doing things a little different. But that's not different for kayak fishing. That if you look at what's going on in professional fishing, they've got all the same things going on. I mean, this year we see a new trail called Dual Threat. Well, we started, Gene Jensen started a team event last year nationally. So, like, there's very similar things in parallels. We're just realistically, we're smaller. And so when you have a smaller group of people and less avenues for those people to go, it feels like it's drastically less. But I think it's just evolving differently. And I don't think it necessarily can be tracked on that little number in the right-hand corner of events. I think that showcases some, but I think, kayak fishing is still alive and well. There's, how many people do y'all have down in Florida right now, Steve?
202.
202.
Yeah,
You
with the
know,
day left. So yeah,
our best events ever were barely hitting 200, and so that seems to be almost a early season, or most of your season standard. And you can look all across the board, any level of fishing, any series, any club. 200, that's a big deal. So like, I don't think we should discredit how the high end has maintained. I do think one of the things that we miss is there's not as much cultivation of entry level kayak anglers.
yeah, that was something
Um,
I was going to bring up in just a little bit, but I want to hear your perspective on it because
yeah, and I'm going to give credit where credit's due, because they did so much for our sport in the early years, and that's KBF.
yeah,
KBF, plenty of people want to say whatever they want to say, but they ran the biggest events ever, and they ran the most events ever. And on the most events ever, they they brought the average person into the fold. Whether you like online events or not, that was a platform that really cultivated grassroots. Whether you liked anything else or not, they gave local clubs and communities an opportunity to fish for something more. And that's always been the formula for fishing, for fishermen. If you want this series to do well, you attach it to a regional championship that's attached to a national championship. I mean, the formula is there, and that's what is really cool about what Bassmaster Kayak series does, and Bass Nation Kayak, is there's local opportunities. But I think even prior to like the Bass Nation events, there is less entry level cultivation that is maybe slowing down the next level and national level growth. And that's one of the things that we hope to do more of with Newport, is get back to the entry level communities, and start feeding that passion at the very beginning, instead of someone showing up $100 in first event, can't catch a single fish, and they're just like, wow, that guy caught 100 inches and I caught 110 incher. And it's a really discouraging experience for a lot of folks, and a lot of people go to one event and they're like, I'm not a tournament angler, and that's how they feel, instead of finding a group of people that maybe don't feel like they're tournament anglers, but growing with each other, helping each other. The thing that this community was all built on, started at the grassroots levels. And when you get to the national levels, you maybe don't feel it as much as you used to. And I think that's a result of the entry level platforms, either getting too big too quick, or deciding they wanted to be bigger, or just getting away from what their mission was originally.
yeah, and so you've got people who want, a big deal tournament like we have in the BOS and had in the BOS and the KBF National Championships, and we have in the Bassmaster Championship. Well, then you hear the chirping of, well, we missed this, we missed the camaraderie and thing. And then I've been with it and witnessed it with you as you taught me. I mean, literally, I'll go ahead and get it over with. He's second of three people, along with Jamie Koza and then Dennis Tumlin we met earlier, that are the three reasons I get to do this. And he, every move he made, we worked, synonymously together to try to carve out a path for me. And it ended up taking me this way. But he made it happen for me. And so I got to learn a lot from what he does. That's why a lot that I do, you could see mirrors some stuff we've had in the past, but you know, it's hard to do both, because if you want that, hang out and meal and stuff, then, we're short staffed, all of us, and it's hard to do that. And then, you have the side where the anglers say they want that, and then they show up and, they're angry that they have to hang out for an hour to wait on something. But, um, the overall point that like you brought up when we were making our show notes, um, where are we at? I do believe we're still popular. We're still growing. I think one of the metrics you can use is the amount of chatter that comes up on the socials all the time about kayak fishing is proof that we're here and we're growing. Um, you'd mentioned some of the grassroots stuff. What I see coming from a grassroots, our TVKA club, Tennessee Valley Kayak Anglers in Tennessee, is still pretty healthy. Um, um, but you look around other states like Georgia, they always had a pretty good grassroots trail system. Now, I know some of the Bass Nation stuff that we do on the state level has grown to be successful. People really love and enjoy just fishing a Bass Nation event because of the shield and that it can get you to our championship potentially. But it's almost like all the other grassroots clubs are like, okay, let's just go fish Georgia Bass Nation Kayak Series or Tennessee Bass Nation Kayak Series and let their grassroots clubs kind of fade away. One is because of tournament director burnout. And then the other is, so I'll just, the elephant in the room with electronics at every conversation is, when you had the BOS, you knew, because I came from a native and I love my native. I fished out of Old Town, fished out of Jackson and Hobies, but you didn't have to have a motor to fish 15 miles with your feet in a Hobie. And, as we started adding more electronics to things, we know we have pushed some people away. So someone has to come in and hopefully set up something, as you're alluding to make it where we can get those anglers in. And I don't know if that's a $20 tournament or a $100 tournament, because if you start having $150 tournaments, then all of us are going to start showing up, and then the new guy is squeezed out. So I don't have the answers to that, but like, in Alabama, there's grassroots clubs closing up every year. And so this year, a few of them have merged together to try to build something in a singular club. But just being connected like we all are, we still see that it's healthy, even though some of these other clubs are folding up and going away. To your point you mentioned earlier, there's a shelf life to everything, just like there's a shelf life to what I'm doing here. I mean, I'll eventually be gone like, everybody else, but, we'll just make the best of it, do the best job we can while we're here. So I would just be interested to, and again, we'll talk about this later, but, what does it take to bring that grassroots back? And I know that's a big, large blueprint, and I'm having trouble because I'm trying to figure it out as I'm asking the question. I know if you want to call it mid-level, we're pretty healthy. You go to Moyak in Missouri, they're very, very successful, and they have some smaller clubs. South Carolina, North Carolina, we've got Vinny's Queen City, they do really well. And that's part, Vinny helped me learn a lot, in what to do and make every event look like a big time event, like you see the trophy behind him. He won on Tennessee Bass Nation, we want you to walk home with the goods because you feel like, like AJ said earlier, you're going home with something. And what that takes is people stepping up and doing it, because it's not easy to do, but it's very attainable to come up with the trophies like that and the big checks and stuff. But you just got to take a group of people and put them together to do it. And so, my take on it is I feel like we're really, really healthy. We're very healthy. We're doing a good job and a lot better job combating the naysayers whenever it's, well, they've got this electronic, that electronic, or whatever. I feel like we do a good job policing that. But I am interested to see, what some takes are from other people on, how we bring more people into the sport, because, I usually just put my head down and I can work doing certain things, but that's not my language. Like what you did when you built the BOS was you got a corporation to go all in and support it, with money and resources, which, KBF didn't necessarily have, and, very successful with that. So, that's not how I communicate. And I don't know how to read those things. And that's why it's really important to have the network that we have. So, I mean, what are your thoughts on what it takes to bring those new people back, kind of thing? Or I don't know.
Well, one of the things that Hobie had as an advantage when we did the Bass Open Series is we didn't need to make money off anglers.
Right.
And, we were using it as a marketing device to sell our brand in other ways. And that's one of the challenges that some people have, is they want to make money doing it if they're going to put the time in. And I'm not saying that someone shouldn't make money if they want to, but when that happens, there becomes a perception. There becomes a difference of just cultivating a club for everybody versus like what the perception of what someone's doing is. And when perceptions and rumors and things like that, you can really tear apart a small group pretty quick. But one of the things, and people are just hard on each other. Like, give some grace. Like have some compassion for somebody. I mean, people always want to throw shade at the person that's doing something, but they don't want to get up and do it. Or they want to complain about it, but they don't ever want to make suggestions on it, And so it's really easy to sit and throw stones at somebody else, but like take a step back, look at their like what they're doing and try to support them. And if you disagree with it that much, either go do your own or just go do something else. The thing that I think is important, I remember back when we were all getting going, local shops supported these clubs.
Yep.
Manufacturers stepped in and supported these clubs. People that were on fishing teams and pro staffs were involved with these clubs because they knew, well, not only did they know how important it was required in their position, and it was also something that, like, as a leader or of a brand or an organization, like, you automatically were a little bit of a role model type figure to the average person. I mean, that's what a promotional role is, it's not just promoting your product, it's supporting a community to showcase your product within. And I think a lot of that has gotten lost over the years. And I think it's, since COVID, manufacturers have done things different.
Yeah, it's really hard to award a pro staffer with the things we used to could. Those budgets have dried up across the country.
Sure. And people still think that they should get certain things for doing certain things. And, I think that's not an unreasonable thing. But, when Newport approached me and they're like, this is what we want to do, we want, grassroots and event support.
Absolutely.
And I'm like, that's not only is that something that I want to be a part of, but I wanted to be a part of a company that believes in that and is literally setting aside assets to support that. And I think that's an important thing. You can't just expect the average consumer, the average person to say, I'm going to save kayak fishing in my local community. It takes the organizations and the companies that believe in it also and need it also to throw a bone out there and invest into it because they believe in the return of that investment, because growing the grassroots community in this sport turns into more users of all of these great products that this industry has to offer. And it takes people from those smaller opportunities and elevates them to, the next steps, just like every other side of the fishing industry does. And I really hope that, this opportunity with Newport is able to get that rolling. But it's not something that we can do alone. It's something that I hope other manufacturers and other local, retailers, they want to support that effort as well. I think that's a really important part. It's the right people and the right supporting organizations that will really get that back off the ground, because that's what it took originally.
Yeah, it's like a lot of people, and I mentioned it for a reason. He and I working together while I was still working my regular 9 to 5. He led me to dugout bait and tackle as I was leaving the fishing industry because I was just, kind of burnt out or whatever, had a lot going on, and that kept me in the sport. And then I got associated with the brand, and I had committed that while I'm here doing this, I want to do it with my friend AJ, and so we did that for a long time. And then, he was able to get with Morgan and come up with the Hobie BOS Open College Series. So they let me start that, and we ran that for a couple seasons. And then, now we have it with the Bassmaster College Series. And so, while we compete for anglers as tournament directors, it's never been a competition between he and I on tournament stuff. And like he mentioned, you have people, saying things like that, like they want there to be a competition, and we see it on the state level a lot. There's so much animosity between these clubs, and what I was kind of searching for a minute ago, I think I literally just answered it myself here is, it's got to be a us against them. It's like a tribal thing, and you don't have to do that. And that's, y'all know me as well as anybody. I've always been a very inclusive person. It's like I want the whole house to come wherever we're going, and that's the way Tennessee has been. And so that's what we've always mirrored anything we do off of grassroots. And so the first, let's call it big tournament, because it was big to us, that I ever fished, we had the TVKA, our grassroots, and I'd only fished a few of those events. And I believe it was right after Thanksgiving, Jordan Marshall, and this is probably 2013, 2014. He said, "Hey, let's ride up to this lake in Kentucky." And it was AJ's and Jay's and Matt and them's club. And, so I get a phone call and I said, "Hey, what are you doing today?" I said, "Well, I'm driving up to Kentucky and meeting Marshall. What are you doing up there?" And I said, "Well, I'm fishing this club he found up there." And they were like, "Well, who is it?" And I told them. They were like, "Oh my gosh, that's AJ McWhorter. That's Jay Wallen. That's Stoney. You're gonna get your hands kicked in, And so that was the first big. And guess what? I still have that identifier. And you had the hole punched in it for the rubber bands so that you wouldn't lose it. And I thought that was the most intelligent thing I'd ever seen. And so I come back home from that tournament because we were outside the bait shop there or whatever it was doing awards. And we incorporated stuff like that in TVKA. And then now we pulled from NACA, North Alabama Kayak Anglers, which was always a very, very successful North Alabama club until recently. Tournament directors are just, that club's probably been around 14, 15 years, where our TVKA is around 10 years. So, you mentioned it earlier, we use other clubs to learn. Because if one of us runs out of steam, the other one can continue it on. And so I just wanted to make it a clear point that, as we grow this kayak thing as a sport, we do have, your efforts. We've got the efforts that I'm doing. We've got Drew's Kayak Adventure Series, Gene and Michael's Team Kayak Series. We still have Moyak out there. We've got the Bass Nation stuff. And I'm sure I'm forgetting some others, but I mean, we can do it together, we literally have people we talk to about the podcast industry promoting us to reach out to their own sponsors. I mean, there's nothing wrong with doing that. And if you can't do that, then, I'll stop that statement. But, it's easy to do, and you're going to be more rewarded for it. And you'll be able to spend every day not worrying about, where you're going to get your next hand when you need it from somebody. So that's my plea to everyone as AJ has an effort that he's alluded to. Help us all. We all need that help. Here I'll speak for the Bassmaster series. We're a small organization. We're Bassmaster, yes, but we don't have a lot of people. And there's a percentage taken from payout that goes to the big house, and it covers some expenses and everything. But much like the Hobie thing, it's not a margin where it's like people are getting rich. You're just trying to do things to sustain and be able to keep a series going. And our anglers help tremendously with that. They're getting better with the social media stuff. But when we're at an event, I'll just be honest. I could probably sit back and just be like, "Yeah, you can help me do this." And I probably wouldn't have to lift a finger. I mean, people are involved and engaged, and I really love that they're taking ownership of it. And so, I implore you guys, let's keep that going. Let's keep that positivity. And if you find yourself getting sucked into some of that black hole stuff, just disconnect and go fish, and then come back and see who you can help,
So, first of all, I don't know how we're doing on time. How we're doing on time?
We're an hour, but hey, we're us three on this show. So.
A couple more things I really want to talk about before we close it out. Now, going off of what you just said, real quick, before I change subject a little bit, I'm gonna go to two completely different things here. It's gonna be kind of ironic, but we really are so blessed, in kayak fishing. For the most part, I've done a lot of boat stuff, and I'm not saying that the boat stuff is not positive or anything like that. But as a whole, in the boat stuff that I have done, I have noticed a trend in kayak fishing. We are overwhelmingly positive.
Yeah.
And I love that. And
Yeah.
I hope that we can continue that. And I want to encourage everybody to continue being positive. Now, that's not to say there's not a few negative Nancy's, rolling around here and there. But, with that being said, overall, we're doing pretty dang well, and it's exciting. Now I'm going to get a little more controversial, so to speak.
I don't believe it. I don't believe
Oh yeah,
it.
G can get controversial sometimes. And I just want to talk a little bit about one of the most, I guess you could call it, like, taboo subjects in all of bass fishing right now, and that is technology and how technology is playing a role in, I guess we can go even beyond tournament fishing, but in angler recruitment in general.
Yeah.
Things like, motors. That's to me, that's our biggest hot topic. Probably not so much anymore, but I mean, if you ask anybody 3 years ago, that was the hottest topic around. Like, what are we going to do about motors?
Yeah.
And in the boat world, of course, and in our world as well, live scope and forward-facing sonar. Do you think that technology is impacting? You think the barrier that sometimes technology provides is impacting angler recruitment? I mean, what used to cost so much money to get into the sport and to be competitive in the sport, let's face it, now probably costs a little bit more. Do you think that that's affecting us in negatively or maybe even positively, because it's still cheaper to get in a kayak with a motor than it is to get in a $80,000 bass boat and be competitive in bass tournaments? Well, what's your opinion on that?
Well, mine will be short. As tournament director, currently there is a barrier of entry. So something he and I talked about a lot is being a steward of the sport. And a steward means basically how you feel things should be taken care of. And so it changes for every person. But for me, I do see a barrier of entry that I feel like I have to protect while I am here where I'm at. And so that's why I don't, dual motors is a phenomenal thing. It's great. It's people love it, but this is not a classic car. We're not tuning it up for a show. And then there's a safety aspect that we don't even have to dive into. Not every kayak is for that. And then when you put the kind of batteries it takes to run two of them, they're heavy. The Newport Low Pro is one of the coolest things I've ever seen, but it's still a battery. It doesn't weigh 2 pounds. If you're pushing a 36 volt motor, you got to have some weight there. And so, there is a barrier of entry there. But AJ mentioned earlier, the perception and the things that are said, you can set that narrative to where you can still show that people can be included and be successful and competitive in a tournament and not have all those things. The forward-facing sonar is a big turnoff for a lot of people, but it's not a cheat code. You still got to go and learn it and do the whole things. Now it's an advantage for someone that knows how to use it very well. Not going to lie, it absolutely is. But it can be a deterrent too. It can hurt you. So I think that kind of washes it out, in my opinion. And the fact that as kayakers, what we do, we go catch fish that boats aren't going to catch. I think it eliminates a lot of the electronic debate, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the Bass Open Series, we were human power only for quite a while, and transitioned to kind of a hybrid style, which is ironically kind of what the professional fishing circuits are doing now with forward facing. No one likes the compromise. I can assure you from, us making that move, people on both sides didn't like it. People inside of our own organization cried about it, literally. And so it's a challenging thing in a lot of ways, but it's easy for me to say this now, but I didn't get into kayak fishing to fish like to be a kayaker. I got into kayak fishing to fish. It was a
Slay.
vessel.
Yeah.
It was a
That's
vessel
right.
for me to catch more fish. Now, I'm a creek and river guy, and everyone doesn't believe this, but I can attest that there is no better form of propulsion in shallow water than a, a Hobie pedal drive.
Yeah.
And that is
True.
why I used that the way I did, and why it helped me catch fish in very specific things. Now, when you start getting out on lakes, when you start doing other things, it's how can we propel these vessels in a safe and effective way to catch more fish. That is literally what the game is. It is not what's pure, what's this, what's that. And so, like, that's why, it would be difficult for me, fresh off of getting laid off, to go represent a different brand of kayaks, because I still own and use Hobies personally. I believe in it. I like it. But it's not a stretch for me to represent a brand that is propelling kayaks in addition or differently that I actually already have on my own kayak. And so, the motor thing, I know that it frustrates some people, but we've come a long way there. And the thing that Steve mentioned about dual motors and things like that, it isn't really, in my opinion, until the last year where we've seen a manufacturer actually acknowledge that in how they made a kayak. And when you go to safety, you look at kayaks. If that kayak looks exactly the way that it did 8 years ago, 9 years ago, they didn't put a motor on that thing. They didn't test it because they didn't exist like that. And so now we're sticking motors on products that weren't designed for it and just hoping for the best. And like, that's where safety comes into play. That's where, and I talked about this for a while behind the scenes with people like Steve and dealers. There's like an arms race on this deal, but the manufacturer of the kayaks isn't a part of it. And so it's really cool to see brands like Bonafide and Native really step up in the last couple years to say, not only are we accommodating a motor with an area to mount it, but we're making the boat around the motor also so it performs properly. You can put your batteries in safe areas. You can do things that actually make these vessels motorized safely. And I think that's the biggest thing that we're starting to catch up to. But you get into the price aspect of all of that. It's still cheaper than a boat. Yeah, you can make that argument, but it also, there's a lot of pros and cons to the whole thing. At the end of the day, this is the fishing industry. It has evolved in every aspect from the first time electronics in any capacity have been involved. There's always somebody that's going to try to make something better that makes catching a fish seem more attainable. That is the whole root of it all. And to
How can
Steve's
you be
point,
mad at
No.
that? How can you be mad at that?
that's where it's at. Yeah.
What are we all in it for? To
Yeah.
catch bass.
Yeah. I'm just pissed off because I can't buy one. Well, you can. Don't drink Coca-Colas and Mountain Dews for 6 months, and I guarantee you can buy a motor. Guarantee.
Well, and people don't love change, and they don't like learning new things, and especially when they've mastered other things, then they feel encroached upon, intimidated, and that's part of the argument, right? And you can almost go down through demographics and see who's arguing for what versus another, and it's unfortunate because it pits kind of old school versus new school against each other, but these aren't new arguments. Old school and new school don't tend to agree on things in any avenue. And so I think the short answer, which I'm never good at giving a short answer. I think the short answer is yes, it is hurting in some capacities, but it is helping in others. You take a step back and look at it from a manufacturer side. Okay, are boat sales down? Sure. Are kayak sales down? Sure. But electronics and rigging is up. So, your favorite marine dealership or your favorite kayak dealership, they needed that part of the industry to kind of help them continue to stay in business and thrive. And so we can look at it now and be like, oh, this is polarizing, but go to Dugout or go to Hennessy Outdoors there in Dayton, where I used to live. And I mean, there's a waiting list for 3 months, and they've got 8 boats in a bay that should have only been able to hold 6, because everybody is trying to upgrade their products. And sometimes it's not, okay, well, I'm not going to upgrade my boat this year. I'm going to add that new product that Newport might come out with later this month, or something along those lines. So it's people are spending differently, but they're still improving their vessel to help them get to fish or find fish or catch fish. And that's really what it's all about. There's always going to be arguments. Arguments create opportunity for us to talk about it and people to follow. But I do think, just like we're seeing in the bass boat side, I do think there is a really good opportunity for someone to come into the space and say, let's put a limit on something. Let's try to get back to the basics and have a different style of tournament. It's not saying one's right, one's wrong. That's not saying one's better or worse. That's saying let's provide an opportunity for different or more people that isn't currently out there. And I think that's, where you can see what that looks like. I haven't told anybody this, but I had a random thought that maybe the equalizer, because, you can say, well, if you've got spot lock on a kayak and you've got forward facing sonar, it's not fair. Well, maybe that's true. I mean, because that's crazy. Like, you think about kayak fishing years ago and you're like, I have to paddle and cast to the area that I think it is. And now you have a button that you can press and stay in one spot and see the fish that you're fishing for. So that's the evolution there. But what if you had a rule, and people aren't going to like this, but what if you had a rule that said you can pick a motor or forward facing? So if you have forward facing, you can't have a motor. But if you have you can have a motor. So it's like, what's your strategy? I think that's a what I would consider in kayak fishing an equalizer rule. Is it necessary? No. Could someone do that and have a lot of fun with it? Probably. Would anglers still get pissed off? 100%.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's the common denominator.
I mean, I'd fish that event just because it's a cool format. Do I think that that's necessarily the direction that like the sport as a whole has to go in? Probably not.
No.
But
you could do it at home.
Would I love to see a tournament organization like put up an event like that? I would, and I would totally fish it. I think it'd be super cool. I mean, I have like my own opinion on things. Like I just love. And, 10 years ago, if you would have asked me, or however many years ago, if you would have asked me, should we use motors in kayaks, I would have given you the biggest resounding no ever. But in hindsight, now that I've seen the direction and that the sport is growing, I could never say no now. Because it to me, it's giving kayak fishermen opportunities. I mean, I wholeheartedly, and a lot of people would disagree with me on this, but I love bass boat fishing. I think it's great. It's fun. But I have had no desire to actually have my own bass boat because I sincerely feel like I can catch just as many fish in a kayak, especially the way that technology has evolved. We literally have the exact same reason. Really, the only difference is we can't go 80 miles an hour. That's, from my perspective, at least, that's the only difference. And that's pretty special. That's pretty special. And we can do it while spending far less money than buying a fully rigged bass boat. That's
in the community still a little different. It just is. I mean, not a dig at anything, but
I love our community.
Yeah, it's still legit. So
And I know there'll be someone in the comments that says, well, AJ bought a boat, AJ fishes out of a boat now. And I do. I mean, for me, like I said, for me, it's always been about fishing.
Catching the fish.
having the right tool for the job. And one of the jobs that I wanted when I moved back home to Kentucky was to be able to take my dad fishing, to be able to get my dog out, to be able to take a friend that sold their kayak when they had a baby, like to take people out and get out in a different way. And I have thoroughly enjoyed that, but I also still fish out of my kayak for very specific things. And to G's point, you can do things in a kayak that you can't do in a boat that helps you catch fish. And for me, it go back to my roots as an angler, and that's accessing places that boats will never get to. And so I think, and then ironically, like when I run into people in my boat on the lake uh, that are in kayaks, they don't speak to me the same as when they do when they run into me in a kayak. So the community aspect of that is felt for sure, and people get excited when they run into a fellow kayaker. Very rarely do they get excited when they run into a boater. So
Yeah, I guess that's true. But I'll tell you what, it's hard to put a 21-foot Ranger in the New River and catch giant smallmouth. I mean, it just is.
Yeah, you're not going to do it.
And even someone can make the argument, well, you can get a jet boat and fish the New. Well, there's times where the New is so dang low that not even in a jet boat can you truly effectively fish it. But in a kayak, you will always be able to effectively fish it, and that is pretty special.
For sure,
that is
something
always
will
I
be.
really love about our sport. But man, we're getting up there on time, aren't we?
Yeah. We probably need to wrap it up. And we appreciate you. Last thing I got is where we're going to see you next. We see you at the championship on Chickamauga. We see you at the Bassmaster Classic.
That's where I'll be. That'll be. I'll be there on your Tuesday night event. We'll kind of get together and see what opportunities are there for Newport to kind of roll out the red carpet and unveil this new opportunity for the anglers fishing the Bassmaster Kayak Series. Then I will be in the Newport booth all weekend there in Knoxville for the Bassmaster Classic. So if you're in the area, coming out to an incredible show, swing by and see me. I'd love to catch up with folks. And then I will be at every Bassmaster Kayak event for the rest of the season, and doing some other things with dealers, some smaller clubs. Like I said, I'm 3 days in on the job, so we're still getting things dialed in. But I know that those guys at Newport are excited, and I'm excited to get back out there and be amongst the community that I belong to and have a lot of respect for, and look forward to being amongst for sure.
Shoot, yeah, man. What do you got, G?
I got nothing else. I'm just ready to get this Kissimmee chain tournament going.
Yeah, you got to poke around a little bit. And the event will probably be over by the time everybody sees this. So have you found anything?
The short answer is not really. I mean, it's Florida.
Yeah.
So somebody is going to absolutely waylay them.
I've had requests for less wind, be warmer, more water, less water. And so, yeah, it's normal.
I mean,
it's a normal tournament.
3 straight days with lows in the 20s.
Yeah.
For Florida, it's kind of mind blowing. And these fish don't like the cold. Nonetheless, we got a warming trend coming up. I do think the bite is going to get a lot better.
Yeah.
So I'm excited.
Well, I'm excited. Somebody's going to take them a lot of money. We've got people qualifying for the Bassmaster Kayak Series Championship that's going to be in October this year of 2026. And we brought in Pro Guide as our Angler of the Year sponsor. So those points are going to be on the board. We're doing $100 an hour hourly big bass for day 1 and day 2, along with the $500 overall big bass. And that's about it, man. We appreciate you guys. Appreciate the respect and love that you all show us and entrust us in the podcast. And ultimately, just super glad AJ McWhorter could be our first live guest and to record and bring all of his insight.
That's pretty special, ain't it now, AJ?
Yeah, you guys know how to make me feel good.
We'll see if we can get you some kind of trophy to hang on that bare wall back there. But we appreciate you, AJ. We'll catch up with you guys later. I'm Steve Owens with The Scope. the official Bassmaster podcast. And my
See
man,
y'all later, guys.
Guillermo Gonzalez. See you later.